I have very mixed feelings about the tomb, which is a damn shame because I think it actually has some really good qualities, but I think it's bogged down by quite a few bad qualities as well. So let's get into the tomb review just right away, shall we? Starting off with the atmosphere, just finally, they've actually made a good looking map. This is what I thought was missing from the game the entire time. Actual good amounts of color. Every area kind of feels and looks a bit different, almost like it's got its own style. The area with Quick Revive reminds me of something from the Frozen Dawn or like Stonehenge. It's a very interesting kind of looking place. And the areas to the left and right, and maybe even Spawn a little bit, remind me of something like 9 or Ancient Evil. I don't think those areas have the same amount of cool stuff or even look as good as something like 9 or Ancient Evil, but the sort of style is there. And again, actually finally has some different amounts of color, unlike the other maps. And then the Dark Ether Nexus area, or the Doors to Nowhere, are the best looking area in Black Ops 6. It only took them, I think it's been 4 years since the last round-based Dark Ether area, and it looks fantastic. Granted, I will say, maybe don't use a 480p image as your skybox. It kind of ruins the immersion a little bit because I see it quite often and I can't overlook it, but still, it looks fantastic, and that's just a funny little nitpick. It has nothing against the map. I just think it's really funny. But yeah, the atmosphere, thank God, it's finally the best in Black Ops 6. I hope they keep this going, but with the next map being the mansion, I'm very skeptical on that. And next up, let's go over the layout, and it is extremely simple and good. The layout is basically just one big diamond and then kind of a square in the middle. At least that's how I imagine it in my head. Obviously on the TAC map it's not going to look like that, but in actual gameplay it just kind of feels like that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a very solid, very easy layout, very casual layout like I was expecting. But at the same time, I wish there was just a little bit more there. I wish it wasn't literally just either go left or go right. I wish there was some sort of like middle area that you could access. Like not just the Dark Ether, because even then it's basically just open. There are 6 doors, I believe, on the entire map. I don't know. I wish there was like a little side area off to the side that maybe could have added something, but again, that itself is a nitpick. And overall, the layout is still extremely solid. I really don't have many actual complaints about it. And to go over the portals that lead into the Dark Ether Nexus, it's basically one every 90 degrees, or every single corner of that diamond, there's a portal to go in, and in the Dark Ether Nexus area, there's also a portal to go back out. It's the same portal. A little funky thing about it is that the portals have a 60-second cooldown, which I'm not really sure what the point of that is. Maybe it's to prevent people from like just going back and forth, you know, to prevent deaths, but at the same time, you physically are never going to be able to kill zombies if you just spam the teleporter back and forth, so I'm a little confused why it's even there to begin with. And while yes, there were cooldowns on the fast travel methods in the other maps, they were so effective and the maps were at least much bigger than this one, so you almost never encountered a point where you were actually dealing with the cooldowns of the fast travel systems. I think maybe the cooldowns on the portal should be reduced from like 60 seconds to 30 seconds. That'd be pretty nice. But overall, still very solid. And next up, let's go over the Easter egg, which I'm going to be honest, I am not a big fan of. I actually think it might be the worst Easter egg in Black Ops 6. If not, it's the second worst. This Easter egg I don't think touches Citadel or Terminus. And let me go over why I think that is. So first off, your first stuff is upgrading and getting the Ice Staff, which makes perfect sense. I don't really see any problem with that. That's how I think most Easter eggs should start out anyway. But then after that, it's 4 of the exact same step. You go to a statue resembling an enemy, you hit it with the revive thing, interact, you go to that statue, which is realistically only like 10 or 20 seconds away in actual in-game time. You interact with it, you basically just shoot the ice staff on the ground because you don't, the challenges of these statues are so minimal that it basically is just shoot stuff at the ground. It's not difficult. Then once it's filled up or the enemy stops spawning, you take it and then you go to a different portal and go back to that statue and interact with the dark ether energy that you picked up. And you do that 4 times over. And then after that, it's boss fight time. That is so just, it's way too short for no reason. And it's not just that it's short, it's the same step over and over and over again for no reason. And even getting like the free ice staff, which we'll get to the ice staff here later, it's just 2 lockdown steps and then technically a defense quest, which I guess you could say is kind of like a lockdown because you have to be there, but that's semantics aside. Overall, the actual Easter egg, like not the boss fight, just the Easter egg, extremely boring, uninspired, and unoriginal. The boss fight itself, I mean, I guess it's fine. The Sentinel artifact really isn't that, like, intimidating or that cool of a boss, if I'm being honest. It's nothing that I would go out of my way of to play more than once. It just doesn't really seem all that worth it. And one of the mechanics of the boss fight is once you get, I think, to phase 3 or 4, HVTs will start spawning that have the Sentinel artifact imbued within them. And these guys are complete horseshit. They stun you. I've seen them one-shot people at 300 HP and max armor, and the times where they don't seemingly one-shot you, I've seen people get 2-tapped by them at full HP, and they stun you to where you can't run away even if you tried. Why? That's so annoying. That's not good design at all. And before anyone says, oh, well, the older games also had some stuff like that, it wasn't good there either. Not to mention the hit system was completely different. In this game, you should be able to take a lot more shots than you do. That's how the game works. So having an enemy that is faster than you most of the time, if you're trying to fight back, and with different stunning abilities, or like maybe they pull you towards them, like the Amalgam or the Mimic, that's not fun to deal with. I'm also really not a big fan of the boss just being a DPS check. So essentially, you either have to do enough damage and you know you'll be able to get through the boss no problem, as long as you can deal with the HVTs, or you don't do enough damage and you physically, no matter what you do at that point, cannot complete the boss. I do not like that as a design choice. I feel like that's just kind of cheap, especially whenever you make it so explosive damage can physically not harm the boss at all, which coincidentally makes it so to where the ice staff cannot damage the boss also. Why? Why would you make the boss of your map immune to the wonder weapon of your map? That doesn't make any sense. And personally, at least for me, I'm not going to go over this too much. I ran into a ton of bugs whenever I was trying to do the Easter egg. I've had steps locked up on me, which is like this amulet. It kind of just stays there. And if that amulet stays there, I wasn't able to do the ice staff upgrade. It just wouldn't let me. I have also seen this bug where basically you have these purple orbs in your hand from one of the statue quests, and sometimes after you beat it, there's just some on the ground, and if you pick it up, I haven't seen a way to get rid of it. I've heard some people say you can put it in the statue, but I've heard others say that that didn't work for them. Some had to save and quit, but if you're in a co-op game, you're basically screwed because you can't reload, you can't really sprint, you can't fight back at all. Also, about that outro cutscene, ignore that skull, by the way, that's just a bug. It's very clear that the reason why there is no dialogue or whatever is because it's the voice actor strike. That's why. It sucks that the cutscene had to be like that, but it was just the reality of what was going to happen. I was going to be extremely surprised if there was any new dialogue on this map at all. So the fact we got any is kind of a miracle, but that doesn't mean it's good or whatever. The story has always been something I've just kind of been on to begin with. Also, the lack of an intro cutscene, definitely a little weird and kind of feels out of place for this map, especially because we're going to get the Sentinel artifact, one of the most powerful things in our multiverse, apparently. But anyway, moving on from the main Easter egg, let's go over the side Easter eggs. And unfortunately, there's not a lot here. Most of the side Easter eggs are simply just like a loot. You know, here's a pack-a-punch tier, here's an aether tool, here's points, here's a free perk, here's an ammo type. Kind of uninspired, but the best thing, the best positive, and the best side Easter egg in Black Ops 6 in general is also on this map, and that's golden armor. What you do is you go into the Dark Aether Nexus with Melee Macchiato, and you hit these boxes open, and you take the heads to the statues in the spawn room. After that, you'll interact with them, and you're gonna go into a mini boss fight. And I'm not gonna lie, I think this is harder than the actual boss fight of the map. The arena is completely fogged over your one shot, and you can only take armor damage. And these guys are super tanky. Maybe a bit too tanky, but still, the reward absolutely fits the challenge. It leads to you getting gold armor from MWC. And while I wish the reward was original, dude, gold armor is a hell of a reward and totally worth it in my opinion. I ain't got no problems with that. I just wish more of the side Easter eggs in the game in general general were like this. This is such a great touch. Good job on this. And next, let's move on to the wonder weapon, the Ice Staff. This one's a bit weird. The Ice Staff, the return of the Ice Staff from Origins after 12 years, it's really good. The non-upgraded one sucks. It's like one of the worst wonder weapons ever, but the upgraded version is easily the best wonder weapon in Black Ops 6 Zombies. It is super overpowered. It is so fun to use. It's ammo efficient. It's basically impossible to run out of ammo if you have the Voltrade augment that gives you wonder weapon ammo, and super easy to use as well. Very fun. However, there's a design flaw with the Ice Staff that wasn't there originally that they just kind of added in for no reason. There is, as of currently, as of me recording this video, 0 way to tell when your Ice Staff charge is fully ready. Which is odd because in Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, they had a little indicator bar or like lights to tell you when your half charge shot was ready and your full charge shot was ready. I have 0 idea why that's not there. There's not even an audio cue from what I've seen. It's basically just feel. The problem is though, sometimes you're eventually going to mess up. So if you're not ready on that, you're gonna die really quickly. But still, overall, the Ice Staff, great. I really don't have that many complaints. I'm just more so confused on why or how it's in the tomb in general. From what I can tell, it has no actual reason to be there. It's just kind of there for Origins fan service. I don't have a problem with fan service, but I would just like some kind of explanation as to how or why it's there. And better yet, how there's one in the box and one you can build, because how did you get 2 ice crystals? I mean, that's just a nitpick though. It's just something weird I thought I would point out about the map. Next up, we have the returning perk, not the new perk, returning perk from Black Ops 4 and Cold War, Death Perception. And this perk is awful. I remember when Death Perception first came out on Cold War, people were wondering with the upgrades it had, why the hell is this here? This should be Vulture's Aid. And we got that in Black Ops 6, which has led to a really terrible situation for Death Perception, meaning it has quite literally 0 purpose. In fact, there's a setting in-game called High Contrast Mode that quite literally does what Death Perception does, except even better. In fact, the one area on the map where it would make sense, like where you would want it, the gold armor side quest, it doesn't work. You can't see them through the fog. It's only if they go behind a wall can Death Perception activate. It doesn't care that the fog's there. So it's one potential niche use I could have seen on this map. It doesn't exist for some reason. I don't see anyone being excited for this perk. It's a complete waste of points. There's no reason to pick it up that I'm seeing. Yeah, it's a complete waste of a perk. I would have rather Mule Kick or Tombstone, even though I feel like Mule Kick would be useless in this game and Tombstone is Tombstone. I still think the augment choices could have potentially been better than what we got with Death Perception at least. And the augments also on the perk suck, or feel like they don't really do anything. Like they all have such a low chance of proccing, or I, for example, don't use the mini-map, so all the mini-map stuff doesn't affect me either. I don't know, just this perk, I don't feel like it makes sense. Even the perk itself doesn't make sense being on the map. It's called the Tomb. Why is Tombstone not back? Again, I'm not a fan of Tombstone, but it's literally called the Tomb. It would have made so much sense if Tombstone was back on the map. But anyway, going on to a much more positive thing, high rounds. They finally did it. They finally made a map in Black Ops 6 where spamming mutant injectors is not the main strategy. Hallelujah. It's actually using the Ice Staff the entire time. It is by far the fastest round 999 ever achieved. I think as of 2 days of posting this video, 999 has already been reached. Granted, that was with a glitch. It's called the hand cannon glitch. And from what I can tell, the charge, when you use the charge shot and you go to the hand cannon, it seems like the damage transfers, or it's similar to the Claymore glitch in Origins. I feel like it's going to be patched, and if it is patched, we're going back to also using mutant injectors. Thankfully, the Ice Staff is still going to be mainly used as the strategy, but then mutant injectors will be back on the menu, more than likely. It depends when you're seeing this review. But still, finally, we got some variation in the high rounds. Even though it's not training, I can deal with it. It's still much better than what we've been dealing with on the other maps. However, let's go on to, I think, one of the bigger negatives of the map, and it is the, once more, reusing and repurposing of the exact same elite and special enemies, with a returning non-favorite special enemy, the Mimic. I don't understand why the Mimic is here, and especially with the Amalgam on the map, they almost both serve the exact same purpose. The only thing that the Mimic does, which is even more annoying, is stun the player if they grab them. They also completely disable Casimirs and decoy grenades. Not something I like, but I mean, I guess it forces variation, I guess. Mimics also serve the exact same purpose as amalgams. Amalgams are basically just beefier version of mimics to begin with, except amalgams can heal and they're actually like an elite enemy, so they like have a presence to them. The mimics on this map, they're so squishy, and they have no, again, they have no business being on the map. Remember that lockdown step I was talking about? If the mimic is not there as one of those enemy types, it's the parasite, the vermin, the amalgams, and the doppelgast. Why are they there? I feel like they're just there for the sake of saying, hey, we have a quote-unquote new enemy type or a returning enemy type on the map. Do they serve a purpose? No. Do they add to the aesthetic of the map? No. Do they cause more glitches like being pulled through the ground? Yes. Do they add annoying gameplay mechanics? Yes. So I don't know why they're there. And again, the reuse of amalgams, doppelgast, I'm okay with doppelgast being reused, I think, because it's so close to Citadel, it at least makes sense for them to be on the map. But the vermin, parasites, and amalgams, I'm not cool with. Amalgams, I hate them the more and more they are on maps. I don't like the abominations either, but having the amalgams be on 3 maps in a row has really made me dislike them. The vermin and the parasites also just flat out do not fit on the map, especially when you go into the dark nexus, and all of a sudden the unholy power of the vermin and parasites turns this spectacular area into a foggy mess of just like whatever. They really need to swap these guys out for something. They make no sense on the map. I'm tired of seeing them, and I don't think people like them to begin with. They're a very annoying or just nothing burger enemy type. And normally this is a section where I would go over the copious amounts of bugs on the map because it really was ridiculous, but I'm only going to go over the ones that I experienced. I have crashed no less than 10 times. And that's been a combination of just straight hard crashing and DirectX errors. I have also blue screened not once, but twice on this map already. And as I pointed out to earlier, one of my friends was actually pulled through the map by a mimic somehow in the spawn room. And I've gone over some of the Easter egg bugs, like upgrading the wonder weapon that I've had to deal with as well on the map. It just, they really need to bring back QA, because that's the type of stuff that ruins a day 1 experience or even a week 1 experience, especially for the people who had the split screen bug where they physically couldn't play split screen, or the HUD preset bug where the feature they added caused zombies to be physically unplayable. This is what the gameplay was like for those people. It was bad. Thankfully, some of these issues have been fixed. Some of the major ones like the split screen and the HUD thing have been fixed, but there are still just some really annoying bugs in the map that I feel like are just unacceptable. And if you haven't been experiencing any of these bugs, good for you. I'm glad, because they have really dampened my mood to play this map or Black Ops 6 in general. So just kind of in conclusion, for me, this map is so just id and mixed at that. It has some of the best things about Black Ops 6, like we finally have a great atmosphere and the best high rounds in any game, but then they bog the map down with really weird decisions or just very high lack of quality assurance. I don't know. I don't see myself going back to this map because there's not much to master about this map. I've only played the map for a few days, and I feel like I've done everything, seen everything, and I know what the map plays like to a T, which for me is why I think this map is extremely average to slightly below average for me, which is gonna lead me to a score of a strong 4 to a light 5 on this. But yeah, anyways, guys, let me know in the comments, what do you think about the map? I don't really expect a lot of people to agree with my take. I've seen people say that the score of this map is from like a 2 to a 3 to a 4. I've seen people say it's a 6 to a 7 to an 8. I've seen 9s. I've seen 5s like myself. I've kind of seen everywhere on the spectrum. And I feel like you can't really say one thing or another unless you're saying it's the worst map of all time, because you're just flat out wrong. This map does not have core fundamental flaws like certain other zombie maps do. But yeah, tell me what you guys rate this in the comments section, because for me, it's just a whatever map. I got exactly what I expected out of this map, and there really wasn't any surprises. So yeah, y'all. See you later.